Coming closer to the days of Hanukkah, if you open up a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Siman Kuf Lametes, Hilchos Hanukkah, Boy Chavav Sifim. It's good to know the basic halachas of Hanukkah in Shulchan Aruch. Open up Sif Aleph, Habayis Hasheni, the second base Hamikdash, Shemalcha Malchus Yavon, Gazru Gzeres Al Yisrael Ubitlu Dasan, Allah Yenich Oisam Lasik B'Torah Mitzvahs. The Mevatla, the Yidden from Mikayim Torah Mitzvahs. Why? Because they were in power in the Bayis Sheni. The Yevonim didn't want Yidden to keep Yiddishkeit, Judaism. So they were making on them decrees. No learning Torah, no marrying Yidden, the Bris Milah, Kiddush Lavana. All these ideas of keeping Yiddishkeit alive. They were trying very hard to be Mevatla Yidden in Zman of Bayis Sheni. Pashtu Yudeim B'Mamayim Uvenei Seim, and they stuck their hands out. They got involved. They started taking the Yiddish money and the girls, the daughters of the Yidden. And they came into the base of Mikdash, into the Heichel, parts of by Pretois, and they broke open brokenings, breachings, the timas at the Harais, and they made Tamei all the things that were Tahir. Tsar Lahem Yisrael Ma'id, Nehem Lachtum Lachatz Gadol. And this is something which brought the Yidden a lot of pain, a lot of agony, and then this whole idea of what was happening, to see what's going on in the base of Mikdash, and in general, to all the Yidden and the money and the Kedusha of the Bnei Yisrael was something that just gave the Yidden a lot of pain. Told the Eibishter, the one of Yisrael, God Almighty, decided to have mercy on the Yidden, and they came the Chashmonai, 12 Bnei Chashmonai, which was a really small number, which is a great chiddush. That's part of the miracle that 12 Bnei Chashmonai Kainim Gedolim. It's a Rashi, it's a clear Rashi in V'zayis Bracha that the Chashmonai were 12. Midu Melech Min HaKohanim, and they put up a king from the Kohanim, Chazru Malchus Yisrael, Yisrael Amasayim Shana Ad Churban Hasheni. They brought up a Yiddish king, and the Yidden ruled till the end of the Churban Bayis Sheni, which he says over here, which was more than 200 years. And the Yidden conquered and won over their enemies, and they wiped them out. What day was it? It was on the 25th day of Kislev, Chafei Kislev. And they came inside the Heichel. They didn't find pure oil in the base of Mikdash. A story that happened of Hanukkah. They found a little jug of oil that had enough oil just to light for one day. And you know the story that this little jug of oil, which was only able to last for one day, lasted for 8 days. And we know to take the time to go to get the oil, to bring the oil itself, was 8 days. And the next here is that the oil itself, this little bit of oil for one day, lasted for 8 days. The time it takes to go back and forth is 8 days. So here, this was good enough. It lasted for the whole 8 days. And because of this, Skinu Chacham Shaboisi Hadair Shiyu Shmoinas Ayamim Ha'elu Matchilim Achafi Kislev Yimei Simcha V'Hal. She says because of this nest that happened, Chacham made a takana in that generation that these 8 days, which starts on Chafei, which is already Chavdal by night, we start lighting the menorah 8 days. This is the whole idea of saying Hallel and Simcha on these days of Hanukkah. In continuation to this, at the Chum in that generation when it happened, made this made Simcha and Hallel. So we do this in every single year, the same days of Hanukkah, Chafei, Kislev. And we light the natives by Erev evening. Al Pitzchei Habatim on the openings of the house. And that's every single night of the 8 nights outside, that it should be for the public. That's what it says here in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And these days are called Hanukkah. Later we're going to see inside, it explains exactly where to put the menorah in the house, and more details we're going to see inside. They wanted to say Hanukkah. When did they rest? They rested on Chafei. So Hanukkah is a word which is made up of the word Chanu, resting Chafei on Chafei Kislev. So Chafei Chanu Meveim, on the day of Chafei, 25 days into Kislev, they rested from their enemies. And another idea here he brings of the name of Hanukkah. Also Hanukkah they made a Hanukkah Abayis. They rebuilt the same idea of Hanukkah is the idea of chinuch, to be mechanech, a small child, education. So here's the idea of they were re-educating, re-establishing the Beis Hamikdash. Hanukkah, because on Hanukkah they had Hanukkah Abayis. So that's why people should add in a little bit of making a Seudah, because it's not only coming from the word of Hanukkah, but it's also this idea of Hanukkah Sabayis, a new house. They rebuilt the house. The whole place was a mess. They rebuilt it. It's like a new house, Hanukkah Sabayis, you make a farbrengen. So here there's this idea of adding in Simcha and Mishteh on Hanukkah. And he adds over here, the malacha of the Mishkan, when was it actually finished? It finished in these days of Hanukkah. And there's this idea of giving over to your children the nisim and the neflois that happened on these days of Hanukkah. Like we find also by Pesach, but here it's the idea of Hanukkah speaking about the Nes. Nevertheless, a person could have a regular meal on Hanukkah, and it's considered a regular meal. If he wants to turn over that meal into a Sudas mitzvah, so the idea is that he should sing songs, speak about the Nes, and that's what actually makes it a Hanukkah Sudas mitzvah. And thanking the Eibishter of the Nisim and the Flois. And we add in Tzedakah b'mei Chanukah, kihem mesugadon l'takim b'hem pigmei nafshu ayidei tzedakah. Special 8 days of Chanukah have a special merit of fixing blemishes and indents and all these things in the soul. She says giving tzedakah on Chanukah is a very, very special time to fix up pigmei nafshu through tzedakah. and he says together, and he says there's a special idea of giving it to people that are sitting and learning Torah or poor people. That tzedakah should go specifically to those two causes, and that will help the person that has a blemish in his nefesh and his soul. Halacha beis. You're not allowed to fast or make a eulogy on the days of Hanukkah, but before and after Hanukkah is not a problem. You're allowed to do malacha on the 8 days of Hanukkah. However, Kozman, the whole time that the neighbors in the house are lit, the women in the household are not noyig. They're not customary to be doing malacha on that time, especially the ladies. And there is no try to find a leeway, a loophole, and try to find a way that you could let them do malacha, doing a work, when the candles are actually being lit. Why? The reason is Shahanashim, the women Machmira is Yoiser, they're more stringent. There's more rules on the ladies while the menorah is being lit, and the whole time it's lighting. The decree on the daughters of Yisrael were worse, stronger on them than the men. Shagozru, this is something which crazy decree that they did, that any Jewish girl that wanted to get married, so the Hegmai, this big whoever it was, the ruler over there, used to take the girls in first, and we don't have to get into details, but they were mahader in certain things, and they whatever. Kazu, we're gonna look inside, we're gonna see what it says here. Psula is a girl which is pure, which is single, and they used to take them before they would get married to their husbands. Shani says, they would have to have relations with the Hegmai, the ruler over there, before they would go into their new home. And there is a special nest that happened on Hanukkah, which the nest is brought out because of Yehudis, which is a lady, Bas Yechanan Kohen Gadol, the daughter of Yechanan Kohen Gadol. She was a very nice looking woman. And the king decided, the Melech, the Rasha, decided to take her, and he wanted to sleep with her. And so she came and she said, please fulfill my I'm asking for a request. What was the request? The idea here, she gave him heavy cheeses. It made him very, very tired, and gave him wine, and he was drunk. And this is what happened. She cut off his head, she put it in the basket, and she ran with it to Yerushalayim. When the Sar, all the soldiers and the ministers in the army saw the head of their king, of their general, and they saw they lost it, and they just went bizarre to all directions. They saw a massive head on the Shar coming into Yerushalayim, a head of there. They're like, is that him? Is that real? Just head. And basically they just went all around. They went crazy. And that's why there is those that have the Messiah or the Minnig to eat cheese and wine or whatever it may be, zecher to this nest of Bas Yechon and Kohen Gadol. Zeichel Nesh Nasa Dei Cholav, which it happened through mainly the idea of Cholav, which is milchiks. Ad kan halacha gimel.